Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, General. I want to congratulate you for the fine job that you're doing. Welcome to Kentucky, everyone. I know that a number of your members who are typically here are down in Florida or Texas doing what you do best, and I want to thank all of you for the contributions you make. I'm also grateful to General Langle of the National Guard Bureau and the entire National Guard Association Board of Directors for all of your service to our nation. I'd also like to add my congratulations to Colonel B.G. White of the Kentucky Air National Guard, who received the Sonny Montgomery Medal earlier today. And obviously, I'm honored to be here and to welcome all of you to Louisville, Kentucky for your 139th annual conference. We're obviously happy you chose Louisville. And your theme, I understand, is America's National Guard, the indispensable force, and you're certainly proving that the last couple of weeks. We've seen the incredible capabilities of the National Guard, or the 54 as I know you call it, on full display in response to both our nation's threats at home and also abroad. Numerous Guard units have been deployed to protect our national interests abroad, and more recently, more than 19,000 of all of you from all over the 40 states and territories, including those from here in Kentucky, as I indicated earlier, have been down in Texas dealing with Harvey. And of course, Irma has made landfall now. Huge, huge challenges, and you're right in the middle of helping us solve and recover from these crises. I also want to thank all the members of the National Guard who walked toward the disaster to help our fellow citizens. They displayed the Guard's continued selfless service to our nation, and the men and women of the National Guard deserve our sincere and deepest gratitude. I'm obviously especially proud of the Kentucky Air and Army National Guard. I'm told that at least 78 Kentucky Guardsmen served in support of Harvey relief efforts. They saved more than 330 lives. In particular, Kentucky's 131st Airlift Wing, including its Contingency Response Group and its Special Tactics Squadron, mobilized to assist the rescue and recovery efforts after this disaster. In addition, approximately 20 Kentucky Guardsmen have been deployed to the U.S. Virgin Islands to assist in search and rescue operations in the aftermath of Hurricane Irma. I'm also told that Kentucky's National Guard currently has around 200 people in uniform mobilized across the world in support of various combat commands. Major General Stephen Hogan, the Adjutant General of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, from whom we just heard, leads 8,000 citizen soldiers and airmen from the Commonwealth. We're especially proud of Kentucky's National Guard. Commander David Monkeys of Kentucky National Guard's 123rd Airlift Wing as well. Over the years, I've been proud to partner with them on many occasions, including supporting counter-narcotics efforts and protecting the contributions of the Bluegrass Station, which is a major employer in central Kentucky. So on behalf of all Kentuckians, I'm grateful for the service to our country and for their response to the recent crisis in Texas. It's been one of the great privileges of my service in the Senate to help represent all of you. In Washington, as you know, we had a rather eventful week, to put it mildly. This week, we provided critical aid for hurricane relief, prevented a default on our nation's debt, and kept the government funded all in one bill. How's that for quick action? Normally, we would argue over things like that for endless weeks, but pretty obvious we didn't have the luxury of our usual endless and sometimes overly partisan debates in the wake of all that was happening simultaneously. We're working together also to do something that's going to be important for every American, and that's reform our tax code so we can grow the economy and support jobs. In fact, Secretary Mnuchin of the Treasury was down here a couple of weeks ago, and you might be interested in the visit. It was rather unusual. I had run into him somewhere in Washington a few months ago, and he said, you know, I'd kind of like to go see the gold in Fort Knox. Have you ever done that? And I said, you know, I haven't. So we went to Fort Knox. Turned out nobody like us had been in there since 1974. Some of you probably wonder whether there's any gold in Fort Knox. I can certify that there is. Back in 1935, the government either required or asked people to turn in their gold, and they were compensated for it. They were melted down into 27-pound gold bricks. There are 440,000 of them, and they really are there. Given the size of today's federal budget and the economy, you'd be stunned at how little 440,000 gold bricks are worth. About $200 billion. But it's there, and I can end the suspense that some of you may have had about whether we really had any gold in this country. One final observation about what tax reform is about. You know, a lot of Americans look at that and they say, well, how does that affect me? I think there are two takeaways from why tax reform is important to all of us. Number one, on the corporate side, our tax code is so uncompetitive in the global economy. That's what leads to companies taking jobs to other countries. So job one is to prevent job exportation to other countries. Job two is to grow the economy. We've had very slow economic growth here for the last 8 or 10 years. A country like ours ought to grow about 3% a year. To tell you what that figure means, the difference between 2% and 3% is about $800 billion for the federal coffers, not to mention additional economic activity and jobs for all the rest of us. I had a chance to talk to the Secretary of the Air Force, Heather Wilson, who you're going to hear from. We have not been adequately funding the military. All of us would like to have more revenue, and this is a way to get more revenue out of growth, not out of raising taxes on anybody, and also to provide middle-class tax relief. So I bring that up, even though it's not directly related to defense. It's related to all of us. When we have a healthier economy, we can do everything we're supposed to do a lot better. Now, obviously I have some differences with the previous administration's approach to defense. Reasonable people can differ, but I think America is better off when we accept a leadership role. It doesn't mean that we involve you in every conflict that you could be involved in around the world. But when America doesn't lead, people don't know who to follow. And almost nothing constructive happens on the international scene without American leadership. And so I applaud the decision, for example, after all of these years in Afghanistan, you can reach one of two conclusions. You can say 17 years is long enough, I'm leaving. Or you can reach the same conclusion that we reached at the end of World War II and at the end of the Korean War, that some kind of forward deployed American force either soon or ultimately brings stability. I don't have to tell you, we still have troops in Germany, we still have troops in Korea, we still have troops in Japan. And so I think this administration made the right decision in saying that we needed, without any time limits, without saying to the Taliban, if you just hang on one more year, we won't be here, a deployed group of roughly 10 to 13,000 Americans who will be there for counterterrorism purposes and for ongoing training of the Afghan National Army. Because we all remember, even though some really young people may have forgotten what happened 17 years ago or 16 years ago Monday. And so that's a decision I applaud, and I hope when the Iraqi National Army finishes refighting the Iraq War, and they're close to doing that with our help, we'll have a residual unit there as well. Not for ongoing combat operations, but for the same kind of stabilizing purposes. We remain in Afghanistan. In the last government funding bill, President Trump and Congress took a critical first step in rebuilding our military. We've got challenges all over the place. You know, I'm confident. President Bush said to President Obama, your biggest problem is going to be North Korea. And we know for sure President Obama said to President Trump, your biggest problem is going to be North Korea. And while we don't know what the ultimate solution is going to be, we know this is a heck of a challenge. We hope we'll be able to unwind that. Obviously, the Chinese are the only country that have any real clout with the North Koreans. We think they are hopefully heading in the right direction of using that, but we need to be ready no matter what ultimately plays out. Working with colleagues here in Congress and the new administration, we've done a lot for our nation's veterans. For example, we successfully passed legislation to promote accountability measures so the VA would have the tools to hold bad actors within its ranks accountable. We also passed legislation to shore up the Veterans Choice Program, which helps veterans avoid long waits and travel times. We also passed a bill I know many of you are interested in, the Harry W. Comrie Veterans Education Assistance Act, which was recently signed into law and which will expand access to veterans to GI benefits. In particular, it expands GI benefits for guardsmen who have served our nation. So Congress and this administration are taking important steps to support our veterans. There's still a lot to be done, but keeping our commitment to veterans is important. So in wrapping it up, let me just thank each and every one of you for your service to our country, especially to the Kentuckians in uniform today. In times of emergency, the National Guard is always ready and always there. Your efforts to help fight our nation's wars, defend our homeland, maintain critical state, federal, and international partnerships in support of our country safely and security have demonstrated the vital nature of your service. And in the wake of natural disasters like Hurricane Harvey, you can always count on your phone going off, right? In the wake of these natural disasters that we're confronted with the last couple of weeks, let me just say, I don't know where we'd be without all of you heading into these disasters and helping people and saving people is such an important part of what makes America what it is. So thank you for your service. Welcome to Louisville. Have a great meeting.